Hey, Typology Tribe, welcome back to the podcast on which we explore the mystery of the human adventure through the lens of the Enneagram. I'm jumping right in today. I don't want to waste a moment of time. I have my good friends, Dr. Dan Allender, Dr. Steve Call. Dan Allender is an Enneagram 8. Steve is an Enneagram 3. Authors, by the way, of this wonderful, wonderful book, The Deep-Rooted Marriage. Hey, guys, welcome back to Typology.
Oh, Ian, what a absolute thrill. Always a wild ride with you, sir.
So good to be with you guys. We love your podcast. So grateful to have a conversation with you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Well, before we dive into the book, let's dive into the Enneagram. Dan, I'm going to put you on pause for 1 second because you are a complicated man. But Steve, you are an Enneagram 3. You mentioned right as we were coming on that you value or you just think the Enneagram is a useful tool. Not all PhD psychologists believe that. Many would sort of view it as kind of being a Myers-Briggsy kind of loosely researched and not very useful instrument. Tell me about why you appreciate the Enneagram and how it's shown up in your life.
Yeah, I love the Enneagram, and I was introduced to it by my wife Lisa. Lisa is a big fan, loves it. We've started to use it actually in some of our couples work with therapeutically, like trying to understand, the ways in which people live and relate the way they do, and it's so connected, I think, to that strategy. The strategy of how we found love or how we pursue love. And I think that has been so true for me. It's been so true for Lisa. So it just has created clarity around how to understand what's happening for us, particularly in maybe conflict or tension or difficulty between Lisa and I, and for other couples as well. So I think it's a really helpful tool. And I love the word clarity. It has created clarity for us in the way we might understand the way we live and relate to one another.
Wow. Okay, so now your wife is a 4.
Yes.
You're a 3.
Yes.
Very different creatures, though similar in some ways. Both of you have typically have more issues around shame than the other 6, the other 2 triads, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Lots of, for you would be issues around having trouble naming feelings. You have tons of them. In fact, your number has more feelings than any other type on the Enneagram, but the most difficulty naming them, navigating them, and figuring out how they all work together.
Oh, so true, Ian. I mean, my livelihood is based upon being able to read and attune to others' feelings, but I struggle with it often in my own self, and that's why it's so helpful to have Lisa, the safe other, be able to engage, ask, wonder, be curious. We can wake up and have coffee, and as a 4, she could take up 99% of the time. And then she might say something like, "Well, what about you? What are you feeling? What's going on for you?" And I don't know. I mean, it's often I'm not connected. I can feel something strongly, but I'm not often connected to what it's connected to.
Yes.
And that has been a real bind for us at times. And I love the remembering of what you just named about shame. I think for us, that's why we teach on shame. That's why we write on shame. I mean, so much of our therapeutic work with couples is oriented towards shame because it's so familiar for us. And that is often a connective tissue between the two of us, is the conversation and the awareness of how shame is at play between us.
So here's something interesting, and then Dan, I'm going to pop to you, but this is important because I think it's a good teaching moment for our listeners. One particular teacher who I really respect does not think of 2s, 3s, and 4s as being the shame triad, but rather calls it the sadness triad or the grief triad, in part because of this kind of sadness over not being loved, seen and loved for who you are, or valued for who you are, but only for and therefore, there's this constant projection, projecting different images for each of those 3 types for different reasons. Does that resonate with you more than shame, sort of fundamental sadness or grief?
Not so much for me. I would say particularly for Lisa as a 4, but for me, I think I'm really oriented around the fear that I'm not seen for who I am, but for what I've done, what I've accomplished, what I've achieved. And there is sadness connected to that.
Exactly.
There is sadness connected to it. I don't know how much I'm in touch with that. because I don't want to be. I think that's a
Right.
big part of it.
Sure.
Is that I achieve, I accomplish because that's the way I came into the world. That's the way I was noticed. That was my strategy. But yeah, there is sadness often if I
Yep.
stay connected to it around not being seen for who I am, for the
Mm-hmm.
person of Steve, but simply for what I've done or what I've achieved.
Right.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Dan Allender,
Yes, sir.
supposedly an 8. Now, Dan, 8s, the challengers. I love 8s. I'm the father of an 8. I'm the son of a mother who was an 8, which is complicated. And, you know, the 8's unconscious motivation is a need to assert strength and control over others and the environment in order to mask vulnerability and weakness. Okay, hold on to that. The underlying motivation for a 4 is a need to, let me begin with this. There is a belief in the 4 that there is something fundamentally broken or missing in their essential makeup that everyone else seems to have except for them. Therefore, it launches them on this lifelong quest to find the missing piece so they can finally come off the Isle of Misfit Toys and belong in the world, right? And now in their social expression, sometimes 4s kind of leak suffering, right? You can almost see it off of them. So you think about, Amy Winehouse or others like this kind of melancholy that kind of, you can feel it when they walk into the space sometimes. But there's another 4, the 1-to-1 4, that's maybe the most aggressive type on the Enneagram. People think it's an 8. Now, of those two statements I made, the first being about control and asserting strength in order to hide vulnerability, or the one about this missing piece, need to find it, need to find belonging, and therefore they have to present. They need this need to be special and unique in order to compensate for the missing piece. Which of those two sounds most like you?
Well, can I be a 12 then?
No, you can't.
Mm-mm.
You can't be a
Don't make this
12.
complicated.
That's
Don't
something
make
the
this
There's
4 might
always
complicated.
say.
one guy who does
I
this.
know.
There's
I
always
know.
one guy.
And we're going to rein him in. We're not going to let him be a 12. We're going to let
Well,
him be a 4.
there are so many elements to the 4 that, as you put it in that way, ring deep and true. But the reality for me is what I had to do, and it shows up in terms of what we talk about in the deep root of marriage, what happens in conflicts with my wife, is the need to keep a very ugly moment intact. And so, with a borderline mother, you're constantly having to engage the complexity of chaos. Life is going to evolve into nothing more than, again, here's a technical phrase, a shit show. So
Mm-hmm.
my task is, in some ways, to keep organizationally, keep my marriage, keep my friendships, keep things intact. That's why I think in some ways I suck as an 8, because it's not so much I want control. I just don't want the chaos that the world around me tends to, shall we say, either I search it out, which I do think I do, but I also find myself in that position often in multiple realms, not controlled to make things as I think they should be, just to keep chaos somewhat at bay. So do you see, in some ways, I
Yeah.
think it's a interplay of 8 and 4, as you put it.
All right. Well, we got to be one or the other, at least according to the teaching of the Enneagram. Now, you do contain all 9 types, but one of those has to be more dominant. Steve, you think he's a what?
Oh, I know a 4. I mean, Lisa is a 4. Like, there's just such familiarity, and it really is what you named, the desire to be unique and special. And I think that is so true for Dan. I mean, you are very unique and you're special, and I think that's hard to own. And so I think there's like almost like the secrecy of it or the silence. It can't be true, but I think that is so deep and true to your bone, like the longing to be unique and special, and you are, and you know it.
Well,
And that,
and this is what happened when we were together in the last time, was as you opened up the possibility of 4, I take you very seriously. So it's been something I've pondered, but the way you're putting it in the realm, I, again, will say, at least at this juncture, you're on to something. But
All right.
that's to me what all good quote unquote marriages, all good friendships, all good, it's like revelatory. There's something about engaging this that you just begin to go. One of the powers to me of the Enneagram is it's virtually impossible to come to a point of complete finish. There's
Yes.
always something more to be learned, something more that I think that's where, in comparison to like Myers-Briggs, things that just give a kind of finality versus a capacity to enter into this very large, exquisite edifice. And now you get to explore room by room by room. So
Yes. I
the
love that you.
114.
All right. It's possible, man. Like, first of all, you have the forest glasses of any guest on our show ever.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that last time.
Steve, am I right about that? Look at his glasses.
Absolutely.
They scream four.
He doesn't really need to wear them. That's the key.
No, he doesn't.
It's a blue shield or whatever. But again, it's out of cheapness. I told you that before. They were 6 pair sold for 75% off.
That's the way you justify it, though. That's the way you justify it.
Come on, Steve.
To be unique.
Come on, Steve.
Oh my gosh,
I love this.
I'm unique and special, but I'm not trying.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
So true.
All right. This is a lovely 3-1. And in this case, Foursquare, the ball is going to keep coming back to my court.
Yeah, it is. And so far, you're loving every minute. Now,
right there, that would be a 4.
Well, kind of. Yeah, kind of. I love what you just said, though, Dan. And again, good teaching moment. Here's a great illustration about the human person through the lens of the Enneagram, which is an imperfect model. It is not the only model, but it's an interesting one. And imagine that you are a house with 9 rooms. Each of us is a house with 9 rooms. Now, we know that when we move into a new house, for some mysterious reason, there's a gravitational pull to one room in the house that will ultimately become, like, quote unquote, your resting home. It's the place, it's the chair, it's the corner, it's the view, whatever it is about that room, you always go back to that room. It doesn't mean, now, I've lived in houses where there were rooms, I never went in them, or I went into them twice a year, right? Like into a kid's room or into, some room off the basement. And I'm like, oh, I forgot I even had this room or this bathroom here. Case in point, everybody is kind of, when we talk about the Enneagram, as a metaphor, that's helpful because we all have all 9 rooms in the house. All of us have a 4, a 7, and 8. And periodically, we visit each of those rooms and have the appearance, but there's one room we keep going back to. And that's our dominant type, right? So in my house, as a 4, it's that blue room with the really melancholy horse paintings on the wall and the Tibetan rug and my incense and my candles and my blah, 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 all this stuff. Rest of the house, there are some rooms I don't spend a lot of time in. They're just not my thing. And that's how I like to think about the Enneagram.
Love that. Such a wonderful image.
Yeah.
And to think about marriage, you're going in between 2 rooms and then sometimes a neutral 3rd room and sometimes the conflict room. And then you begin to play in that merry-go-round. That's just, it's circular.
I would say that's the
this.
complexity. Like that is the complexity, is where's the common room? Like where and in what way are we engaging in a room that feels familiar and comfortable for both? Like that's a really helpful picture.
So I have a question about marriage for you too, but I want to save it for a little bit later. It's about my marriage. I've been married for almost 40 years. We've been together 45 if you count college and dating. And an unusual thing has broken out in the last few years, and I want to talk to you about it. But first, give us a 50,000-foot précis of the deep-rooted marriage. It's Steve. Why don't you do it? Just give me a big elevated picture about what it's about.
Uh, uh, I would say a couple sentences along the lines of it's a way to help couples become maybe a bit more aware of how their past, referring to family of origin, their experience in their own family is being played out or remembered or reenacted in their current marriage. That's
Okay.
the hope, is the way in which someone reading can begin to become just a bit more aware of what's being played out, what's familiar, what is my body remembering, in the way I'm engaging my partner or my spouse that is maybe creating tension or conflict. And it's in that awareness that's where growth comes. And that's why we chose that title, is as we grow in awareness, we grow in depth, we grow in courage, we grow in humility, we grow in desire. And so I think that's I would say the ultimate hope of what we're hoping for the readers.
And Dan, you approach this through the lens, I don't know if it's strictly through narrative therapy, or through the lens of narrative, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The notion that we keep playing out stories, some which we know, but the vast majority we've either refused to know or it seems so common that it's just sort of part of the water that we swim in. And the idea that we reenact, we replay and repeat patterns and structures that continue to bring some of the same debris that we were tending to when we were 5 and 10 and 12. We continued to having to deal with that. And, some just simple sentence, and that is, you cannot engage what you won't name. And just like whether I'm a 4. So when you begin to engage something of the patterns are always related to other structures. And we mean by that the interplay of our way of being in the world, but also the stories that shaped how we are engaging our world.
Mm. Steve, in your experience, is there a particular issue that you see repeatedly in marriage that is the death knell? You know what I mean? Like, is the thing where you're like, yeah, this is that problem, the big problem. What I mean, is there some commonalities? I mean, honestly, people are creative, but not that creative. I mean, we keep appearing with the same problems on different iterations, right?
Mm-hmm. There is. It's hard to maybe isolate to one, but if we were to, I think, put words, and maybe Dan and I think would really agree on this, it would be the issue of contempt. Contempt has this sense of disdain, disgust, contempt either toward self or toward my partner, my spouse. That, and a lot of writers have actually named that to be true, that is often the demise of marriage, is the presence, but also the overwhelming sense of how contempt plays out in tone of voice, posture, the ways in which I do or don't engage. It just has sometimes this harsh, critical feature to it. So, but that's what's important about contempt, is to pay attention to the origin of it. What has led to it? How did contempt grow? And it's often connected to shame. And those two are, not that they're interchangeable, but they are highly correlated. Is where there's contempt, there's shame, and where there's shame, there's contempt. And Dan and I talk about that. We write about that. We teach about that. That those two tend to play a significant part in where couples tend to struggle.
When you have that interplay of shame and contempt, it is the very opposite of what we were made for. Delight. I mean, contempt is just this turning away from delight. And shame is, in one sense, a form of dishonor. So when we're made for delight and honor, and what you experience is shame or being shamed and contempt, it is the killer. I mean, and again, when I say surface, I don't mean by that superficial, but all the surface issues that couples come in to address always have a core, shall we say, rooted issue in shame and contempt. And if we can get into the conversation about what evokes shame, how you use contempt, be it self or other-centered contempt, because sometimes the contempt that's killing a marriage is a person's denigration of themselves. So when you begin to play with that, you got a different ground than conflict resolution. we have the opportunity to do conflict exploration. That's a really different approach.
Wow.
Right. And I know that, for example, I think it's in imago therapy, right? When you start to smell contempt, it's usually a very bad prognosis for the marriage, right? But they're always talking about contempt for the other member in the marriage. You're saying even self-contempt is you didn't say poor prognosis, but it's a significant, important challenge in relationships.
Oh, initially, Becky and I were so compatible because I'm really good at other-centered contempt. She's really good at self-contempt, and we were a lovely Christian couple in the way that and honestly, as she began to grow and began to expose my self-contempt, what came more to the surface was anyone with self-contempt has sort of hidden other-centered contempt, and vice versa. As she began to explore my other-centered contempt, a lot was my sense of failure to keep the chaos in an organized and at bay structure. So, when you begin to play with these categories, you begin to go, oh, shoot. And again, not oh blame, but oh, there is so much need for redemption, and that's another core issue. We marry for redemption, for healing,
Yes.
but we don't have. At least I didn't have anything close to the courage to admit what I thought I needed or what I had lost or never had. But
Yeah.
Becky filled all my dreams. But then the dreams, when she didn't do as I wished, became structurally a nightmare.
So I have a question. I'm dying to know I know this isn't my therapy time, but it's not my therapy time. So I've been married 38 years and we have been through some difficult seasons, bad patches. I'm a 4, Annie is a 9. Annie did not wake up and begin really to do her work. And these are her words, not mine. And I have permission to talk about it until my son developed a drug problem, went to treatment 3 times. And she realized the best thing I can do for my son is work on myself. And if I don't wake up and show up, it will only contribute to a bad outcome for him. Right. So she went off and did her work and I did my own and the fix outlays, some other things that, my new book talks about different ways that took place. But, in the last 5 or 6 years, and we went through some rough patches, bro. I mean, like got the lawyer on hold patches. Okay. And, we have settled into this very sweet, peaceable, kind of dance with each other that some days I wake up and I'm like, how did this happen? And I just wonder too, if you reach a certain, and it's not resignation. It's not, I'm resigned to who I'm married to, right? There is a real, genuine love and kind of peacefulness between us that seems to have come as a grace. In your experience, does that happen very often when it just comes as a grace one day after sticking it out for so long?
No, not at all.
I want to hear more.
You've done so much work, and that commitment to dig, the idea that a lot of couples resolve conflict by cutting it off at the top. What happens with a weed? It just gets stronger, but you can't see it until the day comes when, you just realize, like gray divorce, where people just like, they don't even have animosity. It's just a lack of anything. But when you suffer together, and the idea of a 4 and a 9, you would have driven one another purely to a point of madness, particularly your wife. Yet, as you write in the fix, there's been a long history of addiction, which a 9 would be brilliant at the role of the enabler. To create the intersection between the two of you, you have suffered well and long. But I'd also say one more sentence, and that is, even though you're not quite as old as I am, when you get into at least the mid-60s, you're in the season of death. You're in the period in which friends are dying. And there is a reality for Becky and I. I would describe exactly what you put words to. But part of that is we know our days are truly numbered. They are numbered. And in that, they are so much more precious. The simple good things, having done a lot of work together, but yet we're in a season where the fruit is not difficult to pull off the tree because we have tended for a long time to the
I love
roots.
that. He is a 4, Steve.
Oh, I mean, it's
I
just
mean, listen to
evident.
that.
I mean,
He's just dripping with one metaphor and poetic. Every
unique and
phrase,
special,
you know.
unique and special, unique
I
and
mean,
special.
he's like a cross. I mean, he's talking, and I'm hearing Wendell Berry, and I'm hearing Wallace
Yes,
Stegner, and
yes, yes,
I'm just hearing all
yes.
this beautiful language. And he's
Yeah.
a 4. I don't know what
And
the hell
how
he's
there can
talking
be
about.
delight in that. Like that would actually be the hope. You know, Ian, thank you for sharing what you shared. And I think also what you have named is what so many couples struggle with, is that when they choose to not address the trauma, either between them or within them or externally, that is where division occurs. And so I think part of what you're naming is, how did the trauma that you both endured, particularly with your son, allow you to move toward one another rather than away from one another? And how do we do that? Via grief, via sorrow, some level of kindness, that we both endured the heartache. And the Venn diagram overlap is so significant that it actually creates, I think, that sense of connection, which is what you're naming. And as Dan named, the work to get to a place, literally the therapeutic work, to be able to move toward one another in the suffering, to be able to move toward one another in the midst of trauma, is such an essential part of connection.
Awesome. I want to ask you guys each a question. You have to answer it and you're going to want to, and you're going to want to take a lot of time on it, but we don't have that. So give it as precise an answer as you can. Dan, you've got a couple. You're presiding at their wedding. What do you want to tell a couple at the beginning of their marriage, in the middle years, the middle passage of their marriage, and in the final years of their marriage? What wisdom would you give to them at each of those 3 stages?
At the beginning, at the wedding, I'm going to have them turn to their families and thank them profusely, and actually minutes of thankfulness, and then say, from the moment I turn my back, my loyalty is to my spouse in a way that I'm breaking all loyalty to you. And when our loyalty has been established, we will return in a way in which we'll grow a new relationship with you, Mom and Dad. That would be the most bizarre wedding ever in the history of humanity, but it would be brilliant. Second, in the middle years, your body is going to collapse somewhere in your 30s and 40s. It's going to be an absolute shit show. Anticipate it, because the revelation of all your idolatry will have a chance to be engaged in a way in which the compassion, the kindness, the goodness of God will actually mean something well. And then 50s and 60s, it's the preparation of giving things away. You have been gifted. You have been given gifts. It's a time to give away literal, physical gifts. It's a way of giving back to the world, your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors. The life of the gospel is an opportunity in those years to give it away.
I love that. All right, Steve, to you.
I would actually say the same thing.
You
in all 3
can't.
stages.
You may
I'm going
not.
to.
You need
It
your
is
own
because
material.
it's true. No, not his same thing. I'm saying the same thing for each of the 3 stages.
Yeah.
I would say this, and I would say, what are you saying I do to? And the I do to is toward the other. Who I am on behalf of my spouse, who I am committing to be on behalf of him or her. That is such a crucial, critical part in all stages. And I think it's taken me into my 60s now to actually realize that what I committed to and vowed, and from the very beginning, I've missed out on through the years. I've missed out on the middle years. I've missed out on the later stages because I've become a bit preoccupied by my own self, by my own need. And I think if we can remind ourselves that what we said I do to in the beginning is actually the hope throughout the life stage. is that if we dare to believe we're created in the image of God, the invitation is I am the image of God on behalf of my spouse, of my partner. And that drives the hope of who we get to be on behalf of our spouse. So I would say in the middle stages, same thing. It's the same calling. It's the same invitation. In my later stages of life, it's the same calling. It's the same invitation that I choose you and I choose us, who I get to be on your behalf because of what wasn't true in your story. I think I don't know how we can escape that or get away from that from day one or to whatever day we live to be together. To me, it's the same.
I love that. I love that. And I will say this throughout your answer, all I could not get off of my mind was, how is it possible that Steve is in his 60s? He looks 51. That is really annoying to me.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry.
It's a clean life.
It is. It has been somewhat of a clean life. I guess that's
somewhat
true.
of a clean life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, you guys, I love this conversation. And Dan, what was the biggest challenge in your marriage? The biggest season of challenge and what was the source of the challenge?
Well, I would still say it's the same, and that is at times not seeing my wife as my mother, to not see her in her fragility, to be like my mother's fragility, in her need for help, like my mother's demand. And so you would think, good Lord, sir, wouldn't you be done with this? You're a so-called psychologist. And the answer is that ability to be able to engage that 8-year-old, 10-year-old boy who also happens to be a 73-year-old man. That process is part of, I think, the linkage of time, literally not just narrative, but time in our soul. There's something about our soul that's timeless. And in that, if we can hold the interplay of our past and present in a way in which we come to greater kindness. I mean, that is one of the key things that we would say in the book. How do we grow in kindness is how we grow in love. And how we offer kindness is how we're going to engage in intimacy with our spouse. So that came up a few days ago regarding whether a baked potato was finished. I didn't think it was. My wife thought it was. And we're in a conflict after 48 years. We're in a baked potato conflict. So if we can engage those realities, we have a chance to deal with things like that with much more generosity and curiosity.
So, Steve, in the book, you talk about something Dan just spoke about, which is the importance of awareness. Right? The awareness of these narratives, these unfinished stories, the unmade beds of our history, right? How does a person cultivate and remain in a state of awareness in their relationship so that things like shame, judgment, and resentment will be mitigated somehow?
I mean, it's too simple to say this, but and it's not at all. I think what you're asking, Ian, is the remembering that I get to play a part in the shame and the contempt and the experience of the other. Meaning, when there's curiosity from the other, that helps us become aware. I can't cultivate awareness simply on my own. I mean, we might try at times, but that's the beauty of marriage, is it's meant to cultivate awareness because the other pursues, because the other engages. When you ask Dan the biggest struggle, I think often the biggest struggle is in moments of conflict, something's getting reenacted in our story. And when I'm curious about that with Lisa, when Lisa's curious about that with me, that's where awareness, I think, takes place. She came home late recently from something. She said she was going to be home sooner. I think where I struggle often is I often will make Lisa pay for the heartache of my own story. I didn't have a mother that was attuned. She was highly distracted. And so when I experience that at some level with Lisa, I make her pay. I go away. I withdraw. I don't engage. Because yes, I feel shame, but also I don't want to be exposed. And when Lisa is curious, like when she actually moves with curiosity, like, hey, what's happening for you? Hey, what's going on for you? You seem a little quiet. You seem a little distant. You seem a little distracted. What is that about for you? Like again, we can't underestimate the value of pursuit, but also the curiosity of, hey, what's happening? I think that's the heart, that's the soul of what awareness sounds like and looks like.
I love that. I actually just wrote down, and I know this is reductive, but conflict plus curiosity, arrow, awareness.
Mm,
Um,
so
and I
good.
love the word curiosity. And I think you've actually just given, I mean, the three of us, because we talk in these categories a lot, I mean, we could actually sort of confuse people. But I think just even a little thing, a piece of advice is, and maybe Stan, you could give me, or both of you could give me the sentence. You're in a conflict with a spouse, and disproportionate energy and emotions are flying to the surface. That's a cue. And some old story is being ignited inside. What is the sentence you can say to your spouse that expresses curiosity? Like, how would you frame it? Like, what would be the exact words you would use? You tell my listeners to use.
Well, let's go to the reality that likely no one's going to have a baked potato issue. But nonetheless, here it is. As we're beginning to argue, Becky literally stepped back. And in that stepping back, she wasn't withdrawing. It almost like she was creating space. And then she said, "This doesn't feel like an issue that you want to live and die on." That alone was just a way of honoring me by
Mm,
saying, I know your good heart is not one that literally is going to make this in a war, but I was making it into a war. But she's naming, in many ways, the much more true and heroic part of my own heart. And then she said, and we can't, after 48 years, really be in a brawl over whether you think the baked potato isn't done. What's going on for you? And that simple phrase, what's going on for you? Steve has talked a lot about this in terms of one of the greatest questions ever asked, but more importantly, what was the tone in the asking? And here's the question: where are you, Adam? Was it
mm,
said with condemnation? Was it said with accusation or invitation? So
yes.
just the simplest, where are you? This can't be about whether or not a baked potato's done, or whether we need a new roof, or whether we're going to the beach for vacation. What's going on for you? And when a defensive response comes, to be able to name that as, I'm asking, but you're attacking. Can we join together to just be curious?
Mm,
It can begin to change profoundly the tone. So much isn't what we say. Indeed, it is how we say it. That's the word of contempt.
mm.
I love that
Beautiful.
phrase. I think that's one of the most beautiful phrases is what's happening. Can we check in a little bit? You seem upset. You seem bothered. Do you want to put a few words to that? Like it's invitational. It doesn't require a response, but it invites a response. So I think that phrase what Dan named and just the sense of what's happening or what happened for you. It is one of the most life-giving statements when the other asks and invites in a way that is offering curiosity and care.
I love that. By the way, you guys, you've used the word invitation between the two of you about 9 times in this conversation. It is the most repeated word in this conversation. I'm curious. I think there's something in that besides just common vocabulary. Like what is it about invitation that is such an important theme for you guys?
Because it gives the other the opportunity to RSVP. When we
Mm,
have a choice in how to respond, we are much more likely to respond in a way that honors. When something's required of us without consent or permission, but it tends to not go well. So we do use that word often because it's intentional, because it says you get to have a choice in how you're going to respond to this. It's kind. It's also a kind word. It doesn't have the semblance of a requirement or
right.
obligation.
For me, it's I love food. I just love good food, good drink, good conversation, good stories, and in it feels like a call to the banquet. You can come, and there's good food here.
Mhm.
So we're meant to have not just in lovemaking, but a kind of sensuality of care, a playfulness, a kind of things that Becky says at times. I just look at her and go, who are you? I mean, where did you come from, girl? And it's one of the sweetest gifts to be surprised. That's what an invitation is to me. Is I didn't expect to be invited. You invited, and you're inviting to something really good.
I love that. By the way, everyone, I want to remind you, we're speaking with our friends Dan Allender and Steve Call, Enneagram 4 and Enneagram 3. The book is The Deep Rooted Marriage, Celebrating Intimacy, Healing, and Delight. Is that what it is? Or Cultivating, I should say.
I don't have
Cultivating. Yeah.
What is it?
I know the
It's
title,
cultivating.
but the subtitle I'd have to look. I'd have to look.
Cultivating Intimacy, Healing, and Delight. Yep.
I got it.
That's
I
it.
got
You got it.
I knew it before Dan, Steve.
I know. Dan still has to look at the book.
What the heck? He's really, check his, maybe do maybe a memory assessment on him. I'm really concerned.
I passed the last one.
Okay, good.
That I did with my physician, but
You're good to go for another year.
yeah, another year.
Or 6 months anyway. All right. Delight. I love the word delight. I know what delight feels like. That kind of, and I know where it is in my body when I feel it. It's just below the solar plexus. It's this moment of, it is a moment of curiosity. It's a moment of surprise, but it's the most wonderful, delicious surprise, right? How do you guys define delight, and how does delight work? Why is it such an important thing to have in a marriage?
I think because it taps into this childlike innate part of us that longs to be seen and longs to be noticed. And that's what delight is when we are seen and noticed by the other. It just cultivates this delight, the sense of I'm chosen, I'm remembered, I'm important, I'm valued, I'm loved. So when we witness that, when we experience that, I just think that has such a profound impact on what our body feels when we are seen and when we're noticed.
So, Steve, can you give an example of when the last time you felt delight in your marriage?
Yeah. I would say maybe last weekend when I was playing in a pickleball tournament and Lisa was there to watch. And what is it about being watched? It's not just being watched, it's being seen. And then the delight on her face in the delight that I hold in being watched, being seen. I think that's what we're inviting couples into is the delight that occurs in being seen, the face of the other. Kurt Thompson, he says, we come into the world looking for somebody looking for us. That's what delight is when the childlike part of us that's being watched or seen on the playground, in any place in the home by the parent, by the caregiver, and the face says, not only I see you, but I delight in you. I delight in actually watching and being with you. I think on Saturday, that's what it was for us, is her face said, all that matters to me is you. All that matters to me in this moment is being watched, but seeing you. I think that's what it looks like and sounds like.
I love that you play pickleball, because my wife, who is a 9, by the way, is I say this a lot, right? But she is the most easygoing, laid back, go with the flow, don't upset the apple cart, lovely, supportive, doesn't say a bad thing about any one human being. But you put her in any sport and she becomes a freaking monster. And when she plays pickleball, I will tell you, beware. Come with pads. With pads.
Sounds like a great person to play with.
Oh man, she trash talks people in a way that she doesn't do anywhere else. Now, Dan, the word delight. Define it and tell me about the last time you experienced delight in your marriage.
Well, let me add, though, what you're describing is not just delight for her, but awe. And what we've captured with those two words, delight and awe, is the interplay of gratitude and wonder. That's the nature of worship. So we're not to worship our spouse, but in some ways, our spouse is meant to provoke, evoke, a kind of gratitude of being able to be in this echo of thank you, no thank you, no thank you for thanking me. So when we've got something of that interplay of gratitude and delight and awe, like wonder, like this morning is my answer. She just got a new pair of hiking shoes and didn't want to take them outside because she's very careful about money. She's going to wear them for a long time, but she had on a pair of Christmas pajamas. So she had Christmas pajamas on with the new hiking boots, and she really wanted to make sure they were fitting. So she tucked the ends of the pajama bottoms into the boots, and she looked absolutely ridiculous. And I just said, I am really struggling with lust right now. And she was like, about what? And I said, you are so delicious looking. Like, this is so gorgeous. She's like, you want to make love right now? I'm like, are you kidding? I'm old. I'm 73. It's early morning. I haven't even had coffee. I'm talking just about arousal. This is gorgeous. So being captured by, in many ways, the surprise, the playfulness, the glory. So if we're made in the image of God, we bear his glory, each in unique ways. So being captured by the glory in the other, I think, is what the core of delight is.
Wow, you guys, I have loved this conversation. And you know what I'm thinking about is I'm really thinking about how I wish I lived near you guys, because I think we would make such a great little group to go, and I could drink lemonade, you could drink whatever you pleased, damn you.
Yes.
And we could have such a good time, because I know this conversation could go on and on and on.
Yes.
And of course, by way of reminder to all of our incredible listeners, you need to go get this book, The Deep Rooted Marriage, Cultivating Intimacy, Healing, and Delight. Knowing these guys, I can tell you that you are going to, this is not your typical, all right, I'm going to show my cynical side, Christian fodder that gets thrown around in the publishing world. This is going to be rich, deep, well thought out. It's not written by a 25-year-old Instagram influencers who have not yet figured out yet how to tie their shoes. No, let's give you a book on marriage. This is coming from people in their 60s and 70s. They have been around. They have done their work. Gosh darn it, buy the dang book and I'll stop selling it. Guys, thanks for being on with us. I've just felt it was so rich.
Ian, Anthony, thank you.
Yes.
Delight to be with you both, and that's glory.
Yeah, such a gift to be with you both. Thank you.
I have to say, my brother, a year ago, came up for Thanksgiving. He's from Texas, and met a neighbor who had been widowed, and they just got engaged and asked me to marry them. And I'm gonna incorporate some of what you just said today in the vows. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Thank
there
you.
you go.
Thank you.
Send your checks, and Dan will tell you where to send the check.
Yeah.
All right. Blessings to you, all of you who are listening. May you have love. May you have joy. May you have peace. May you have healing. And may you have rest. Until next time, be well.